Speaker. The Honourable Shane Jones used his ministerial statement in this debate to allege that I have dragged the name of Winton Land Company through the muck. And so I would ask him and his ministerial colleagues, in this last opportunity that they have before this bill passes, to clarify for the House how many millions will the Winton Land Company make when this bill passes? What is the value of Winton's land before these projects made their way onto the 149 project list compared to later in this week when this bill becomes law? What is the value of the land where the New Zealand Transport Agency will be required to buy land for a road that was not valuable rural land before this project was mooted, but has now been set down in legislation, and public money will go to buy that road, which was not valuable before, but is valuable now? Because the ministers who have alleged that those comments are defamatory owe the House an explanation about what is untrue, about the value of private benefit that is going to this company because of this legislation, not only from the value of uplift of the options that they own on the land, but also from the public purse going straight into the hands of developers who only own an option on this land and don't in fact own the land at all. Mr. Speaker, this is a disgrace. This is law that moves private benefit into private hands into a way which has never been done in New Zealand's legislative process. It should be struck out at this stage. None of these amendments should be allowed. It is a constitutional embarrassment, as my colleague, the Honourable Rachel Brooking, has said. This is not how we should be making law in New Zealand, and this is not something that we should ever tolerate again in this way. The government has used the legislative process to force private development through with none of the normal checks and balances to ensure the public's interests are properly represented in this. People who live near these developments get to have a say normally in the way that these projects are rolled out. And I'll speak more generally to this. The government is trying here to change our planning laws for the better, but this is not how other countries we like to compare ourselves to do these kinds of changes. In the last 10 years, we've seen politicians and senior leaders take more accountability for the infrastructure projects that they are championing. Politicians in Australia, in the state of Victoria, getting out in front of their infrastructure projects, leading people along with them, winning the argument in people's hearts, convincing people that these are important projects and they should happen. This goes in the face of that. This is the opposite to that. This is about ramming through pet projects that people cannot possibly have faith in because there are a list of 149 projects that people don't get a look at. Not only was there no public scrutiny in these, but this is to the benefit of some developers over others. And I want to speak directly to supporters of the ACT Party here. If you're not on this list, you have lost out. This is not liberalising planning laws. This is not about red zoning everything for development. This is not about allowing mining everywhere that it could be done. This is about allowing some projects at the expense of others. Small business owners, medium-sized business owners are losing out because of these projects where someone has more access than those supporters do. This recognises that there are limitations on the kinds of developments that we can do in New Zealand, but has prioritised people with the most political access over everybody else who wants to make some money and do some public good. If the government was serious about this, they would have given serious consideration to exactly those projects where land for roads, land for schools is now seriously valuable to those people on this list. And money will be changing hands from the public purse directly to private benefit as well. Those projects, above all, should have been struck out. I want to also talk very briefly, since the Minister has thanked the public officials who have worked on this. They have done a huge and gargantuan task, and it must feel good to get that off the plate before Christmas. But what this bill tries to require the public service to do is to act in contravention of the Cabinet Manual, the Public Service Act, and their own procurement processes. We are telling Waka Kotahi and New Zealand Transport Agency officials that they must acquire land from a specific developer who has now benefited to the tune of tens of millions of dollars for the project that they were going to do at a much cheaper rate. Shame. Shame on asking public servants to spend New Zealand public money on schools, on roads, which they would not have to have done and should not have had to have done. This is a disgrace.
Dr. Hammond.